All right. Oh, public comment. Members of the public may provide comments to the board on items that are not on the agenda. We welcome and encourage your comments as the board takes them into consideration in our deliberations. Speakers are limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. The board may not respond to, discuss, or engage in any type of dialogue regarding any public comment. However, the president may direct questions to staff for later response or future consideration by the board. Appropriate and respectful language and behavior is vital to the functioning of the public meeting. We ask the board, staff, and members of the public to speak courteously and respectfully. Therefore, the board prohibits disruptive behavior. Public comment. Dave, you want to go? Or Dane?
Yes, no, it's okay. Thanks so much, board, staff. Dave Wadley, I'm a field coordinator, as we call it, with the California Special Districts Association. So the district is, I'm sure you're aware, has been a member of CSDA for actually about 35 years now. I'm checking back in my database this morning. So been quite some time, and obviously appreciate the membership for you. As the field rep for CSDA to our special districts and in Placer County for our purposes, of course, just like to come by, from time to time and just keep you guys as updated on the board as to what we're working on, of course, on your behalf, and in pretty regular contact with the general manager on some things that we have, just to keep him informed, but obviously do the same with you guys on the board. So a few things I'll highlight here real quickly. Obviously, we're a legislative advocacy association for your guys' behalf in Sacramento and increasingly in Washington, D.C. as well. So a couple bills on the state level that we are very involved with. First is Assembly Bill 259. This bill allows basically special districts to have for the whole kind of virtual board member participation. So you can attend the board meeting virtually, right? If you have some circumstance that comes up, that authority would basically end at the end of this year in state law, absent a bill to extend it. And so our bill basically extends that or have that flexibility going forward. So we feel it's appropriate. We're supporting the bill, and it's moved to the Assembly and over in the Senate right now. So it's cautiously optimistic that we can keep that bill going and ultimately get it signed by the governor. The second bill we are engaged in at the state level is kind of high priority for us right now. Is Assembly Bill 339. This bill essentially makes it harder for districts to contract out for services. If you have for a bargaining unit, and then says that you could potentially have to reopen your MOU with a bargaining unit if you're going to go out for like an RFP for a contracting out. So we're opposed to this bill, which we feel is it's a little restrictive for special districts to takes away some of that flexibility to get work done. As the case may be on various projects. In some cases, it may make sense to contract out. It's obviously a decision for you guys to make and districts to make. And so we're concerned about that one. That bill is also moved out of the assemblies over in the Senate. So it's something that we're going to be engaged on throughout the legislative process for the remainder of the year, frankly. So those are the two things. Statewide, I'll jump real quickly to the federal side. So CSDA, through our National Special District Association, has been very active back in DC on behalf of all special districts throughout the nation in that case, right? And this year, we're once again sponsoring a bill. It's HR, stands for House Resolution, House Representatives 2766, which would define special districts into federal law. Doesn't currently exist, believe it or not. You and Andy's district and not defined in federal law as a special district. So we're of course trying to change that. Then it would also say then that basically require the federal office management budget then to include special districts and federal, financial opportunities going forward. So something we've been working on, we were working on last year and actually some previous years too, to try to get, districts recognized as local governments and included in local government, funding opportunities, essentially from the federal government. So that bill is early in its process. It's a little different process back in DC than it is here. And so we're trying to get co-sponsors from the California delegation, which we've had some success in doing so, a lot of support locally as well. So it's just a little bit more initial stages of that process. So that's the big one. We also have another bill that we're working on. I'll just touch on real briefly, HR 471, called the Fix Our Force Act. It helps basically get special districts eligible for some financial assistance for force management work, which obviously is very important to us in the community. I've been down in Auburn myself, so I'm definitely watching it, on a personal level. So those are the things legislatively. As I'm kind of wrapping up here, we have a robust training program, as I'm sure you're aware, a number of resources, policies, procedures, assistance in general, for you guys as a district. I'm obviously your liaison, so if you have questions, if we can, help you with any questions, happy to do so. And go ahead and stop there. There's probably about 3 minutes.
So that was really good, actually. You're pretty right on.
All right.
That was good. I would love to ask you some more questions, but since it's in public comment,
Understand.
we're gonna keep that. But when is your next availability so we can actually get you onto the agenda so we can ask questions?
I need to go back on my phone.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
I'll coordinate with.
Yeah, that's great. Do you have any more business cards?
I do,
Okay,
yes,
so that, so we can get them to the rest of the.
absolutely.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? No? Miss Rowdy, you don't want to? All right, moving right along. All right, consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are routine in nature and may be approved by one motion. Does anybody have any issues with approving all these in one motion?
Nope.
Oh, look at that. All right. Can I get a motion?
I don't know how to say it.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Hi.
No opposed. Roger's not here, so moving right along, operations, action items, approval of purchasing 2 35-gallon stainless steel mixing tank system to replace existing lime mixing tanks. Recommended action, approve the purchase of 2 35-gallon lime mixing tanks. Hank,
You're moving along pretty quickly.
I am, we're doing good.
So the existing line tanks were original when the treatment plant was built in 1982. They've exhausted their life. They run pretty much 24 hours a day, 7 days a week unless the plant's off. And so they have a good long service life. The bins themselves are fiberglass bins. They're cracked. They've been repaired several times. Shafts are worn, propellers are bad. Motors have been replaced a few times, but it's time to get something new. We searched and searched for these. They're very difficult product to purchase. We found a local distributor. They provided us with a quote. That's about $11,000 a piece. There's going to be some ancillary plumbing issues and so on and so forth. I've asked the board to approve for the purchase of these, not to exceed $25,000. And we're ready to order those and continue. This is on your capital improvement budget that was approved last year. We need the parts. We're gonna build this in-house labor, and the guys are ready to go. So if we get these on order, we'll move forward with replacing this line system.
Okay. Mark, do you have any questions?
Actually, I was just gonna ask, Hank to just kind of elaborate. Lime system, what do you use it for? Why does the district care? What is it?
So it's an additive in the treatment process. It's an alkaline solution that gets injected in. It reduces the aggressivity of our water, which helps us with lead copper rule, lead copper sampling. It reduces costs associated with that. It also coats the inside of our entire distribution system, which helps with corrosion. And that's pretty much what it's used for.
Okay, thank you.
Ron?
No.
Well,
You did originally have a budgeted for what?
80,000. There's some other parts that will go with this. We're kind of piecing it together. We're putting the whole project together. So the total was 80. This part is 22. I think the new, there's a couple of injection motors that were about 6,000, and then there's some plumbing parts that go along with that. So we should come in considerably under budget. I estimated it so high because these are they're difficult to find, as we found out. And so I knew we would have trouble. And when somebody has you over a barrel like that, sometimes the price can get a little bit high, but we found a good price and we're ready to move.
Okay. Any other questions? Brian?
Yeah, I do. So this is only part of the operation or the project. This is only part of it, the 25,000?
Yes.
So where's the rest of it? I mean, where's the contract for the rest of it? Or has it not started yet or what?
So we're just buying parts, so
Just parts.
we're gonna do the work ourselves.
So where's I guess what she's probably asking is, where's the rest of the parts for this? Or
Most of
those
the parts
companies
are
gonna come later?
substantially under our authorization to purchase them, so
Okay.
they've already been purchased.
Gotcha.
So is that why it's cheap then? Because it was estimated at 80,000, but it's cheap because we're gonna do it ourselves?
We're saving considerably anytime you build something yourself
Our
here.
employees here can do that?
Absolutely. Got all the confidence in the world now.
Okay, all right, so, I think that was,
All day in the old hole.
I think that was all I had to say. I didn't understand how it worked. Okay, that's it.
Perfect. All right, well, would anybody like to make a motion to get this approved? Sounds good.
I would be happy to make a motion to approve the purchase of 2 35-gallon line mixing tank systems for not to exceed 25,000. Will that give you enough, luck movement? Okay.
Okay. We get a second?
I seconded.
All right. Public comment. All right, coming back. Roll call vote, please.
Vice President Bell,
Yes.
Director Thompson,
Yes.
Director Foster,
Yes.
President Downing,
Yes.
4-0, motion carries.
Motion carries. Moving on. Look at that. All right, then. Next, there's currently no board member action items on this agenda, but we do have board member policy action items. And I believe, Diane, that you had 50, 40, 14, because we voted on it last meeting, but I think you wanted to kind of,
We didn't vote on it. We just discussed it.
or just discussed it having it this agenda. So I didn't want to take it off there, but if you don't want to.
Well, I do wanna say something because I went back and I studied the whole document. And I realized that, okay, so here's what I say. So basically what I was trying to do was to get an interpretation of the word, what was it? Here's my thing. Anyway, the bottom line is this, is that contracts need to be approved by the board. The whole document, after I read it and studied it, that it was better defined and further bullet points in that board policy. And the way I read it is that all the contracts need to be approved through the board. So I'm fine with that. I don't have anything more to say about it because I'm satisfied that that's how it is defined.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then, there's no action needed on that. So we'll be moving along from there. Why am I? Okay, moving on to our discussion items. General manager report. Look at that, you're back to back and we're only 15 minutes in.
Let me get caught up.
As long as you do it back to you speak very quickly.
I can be a little bit. Or don't we have that Jeopardy music?
So your safety meeting update, first I want to inform the board that Sugar Pine stopped spilling on the 15th of May.
That's already
So it's already stopped, yeah. Plenty of water supply, no issues, no drought conditions, we're doing just fine. Safety meeting update, we had a safety meeting on May 15th. Outdoor hazards and best practices for working safely around insects, snakes, and poisonous plants. Water treatment plant supervisory control and data acquisition project. The latest is we've slowed down on the project because flows have increased to the point where we can't have anything down. And so we've got a few things that we're still tinkering with, but the big thing is going to be moving the backwash, automating the backwash process for the plant. Don't want to do that during the summer because it's too exacting right now. So we'll wait till the fall, probably somewhere after about October 15th, and we'll jump into that part of the project. Lead service line inventory. I'm super happy to tell you that we're done. We're complete. The state accepted everything. Nathan did a fantastic job on that.
I think it's a round of applause to keep there.
Really tackled it. Brave it's a daunting sort of a task. We actually met with PCWA's folks, how they were doing it. We got some information from them, a lot of help. Thank you, Andy. We're done. So I was looking for a lead service line to award to Nathan, but we can't find any. So no lead service lines in this district. It would have been really odd to find that used in California, especially in our district. So no lead service lines. May 12th, we converted from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Online is a much more workable. We have a lot more licenses, more access, can do more work here and not farm it out. And so we should see some economies, some efficiencies with that, and especially our accounts payable. We're also moving forward with our payroll. Putting that into the QuickBooks through an automated process. So that's looking good. Consumer confidence report. We sent the consumer confidence report to the customers on May 27th. The state allows a electronic distribution. They used to require you to mail it, which was expensive. Now you can do it electronically, but we also have copies at the office. If anybody wants one, they just contact the office and they can get a copy. May 28th, we completed the field work for the Sugar Pine Reservoir Watershed Sanitary Survey. Every 5 years, we've got to do a watershed sanitary survey, which involves going up, looking at the area, checking burn scars, checking mining sites, checking recreation sites. Then we're put together a report that we file with the state that says what potential contamination we could experience. It helps the state monitor how we produce good, clean drinking water to the people of Forest Hill. We also, over the last month, we linked our bank accounts to QuickBooks Online. This is something that wasn't available before, and it's going to really speed up our general ledger entries. And so it should reduce the time that LSL has to spend on entries into the general ledger. Automating things is going to improve our efficiency. It's going to reduce our costs. We'll be transitioning the newsletter from a monthly newsletter to a quarterly newsletter. The reason behind that is printing expense has gone up, postage has gone up, but we really won't save anything. We've got to mail in folks invoices anyways. But we're running out of material. It's getting harder and harder to find a good newsletter to send to folks, and so we're going to try quarterly for a while. We're going to see how that resonates with the community, and we'll make decisions as soon as we know more about that. I also want to say, Nathan submitted a work plan to the Division of Safety of Dams to abandon our old piezometer vault. In 2021, we put new piezometers in the dam. The purpose of the piezometers is to monitor the operation of the dam. So if something's changing, we need to know why, what it is, and what we need to do. The old piezometers were original construction. They weren't functioning as well as we thought they should. The Division of Safety of Dams made several critical comments. The grant through PCWA, we put the I think we got about a $68,000 grant. It was about an $80,000 project. Put new piezometers in. The reason we're just now abandoning the vault is because we needed two sets of data, so that the state would say, yes, the new piezometers are functioning properly. We submitted a request to abandon it. They approved it. They said, send us the plan. Nathan wrote a plan. They adopted it, or they approved it. And basically, you found these little fittings. The state's concern is that if the piezometers start leaking, that could be a problem. And so Nathan found these little fittings. We're going to put these fittings. They're like a shark bite fitting. They're going to put these fittings, remove the gauges, put these fittings on, and then we'll monitor it quarterly, make sure everything's looking good. And the state approved it, and the work is complete. There you go. Perfect. And that's it. That's my report.
Okay, can I go back to number 8?
Hold on real quick, Diane. Let's just go down the line like we all.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. Mark?
Oh, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Ron?
Go ahead.
All right, Diane, how are you?
I'm at Cargill.
The newsletter, who does the newsletter? Is it somebody, the staff? Who is it, what person does it?
It's a combination of field staff and the office staff.
Oh, I see, okay, so I would like to see it. They, you know, it's a good transparency thing for the public to see, and I enjoy it. To be honest with you, I enjoy it, to read what's going on. So are you saying, Hank, I mean, and I get it, like I used to do a newsletter and you have to collect information. Are you saying though that you're having a hard time getting materials to write about every month?
Materials and keeping up with it, yes.
Well, keeping up with it, I don't see where that's a problem, but why can't the,
Other workload.
well, it seems like everyone, okay, so seems like a lot of things are being farmed out, so you think the workload would be less, but I'm still saying though, I'm concerned about the content, isn't there anything we can do to keep it going every month and improve and help the office staff with content? You know, I mean, there's gotta be stuff going
So
on every month,
partners
right about.
previously have submitted informational blogs, if you will, to the paper. That, I think that was a good practice that happened from from 2010 until 15 or 16, somewhere around in there.
Yeah, Tamara did that.
Tamara did that, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good.
I mean, I would like to see it every month, but I mean, I get it if you can't find enough material to put in it. But you would think there would be enough material just to talk about what they
Well-
get. I mean, like that,
And I'm wondering too,
Yeah.
Diane, and just since we're discussing this here real quick, and, this is maybe a spot where, starting to talk about a more comprehensive, website, maybe, and doing something on our website and doing, you know, kind of maybe starting to look at, what do they call it, a PR firm or something like that to help us with a website, so we can make our website more transparent, put the numbers on our website, you know, our whole policy, all that stuff, you know, the minutes and all that stuff, make it very interactive. And I think that would probably help the community, I think, is, you know, I understand you like the newsletter, but maybe that's something we need to discuss in further, you know.
I think that it would be, people would be more likely to look at what comes in your mail every month, you know, the page, than go to the website. I think they're more.
Well, that could be true too, but
Yeah.
I mean, that's something that I think we could discuss in the future. But I think it's, you know, going to a quarterly, I understand that. I understand your side of it too, wanting to see it still monthly.
Yeah, it's a transparency thing too.
But how long have we been doing the newsletter?
2020, we started with an outside firm. The board authorized a contract with Roush Consulting. In late 21 or possibly 22, early 22, the board decided not to extend that contract. And so that's one of the things that was added to staff.
Mm-hmm.
And is at the same time, we had 3 full-time employees in the office. Streamlining some things with our utility billing and everything, we were able to reduce staff in the office to 1 full-time, 2 part-time, significant savings to the community.
Yeah.
But that lagged on, and so we continued to produce the newsletter, and it's just come to a point where it's getting where we need to put our attention to some other things.
Mhm.
Quarterly, we'll monitor response from the community. If we see a response, then we'll figure out a way to add it back in.
Well, and I think too, Diane, I think to help out with what, if you're wanting to see here too, would be, let's maybe try to come up with a way that we can help out
Yeah,
and see if we can get that, because it, like you said, you wanna see it, if there's a way that the board could help to where it wouldn't be a burden on staff, then, you know, then maybe there's a way, but right now, I can see it, you know, I think with them, it hasn't been something that's been in circulation for very long. But I think that's something we should look into. We'll see if we can help them do that, then see if there's something we can get out monthly, if the board wants to help with it.
well, you said to me like the board could come up with suggestions you need to put in the newsletter.
Or maybe the board just come up with the items to send out to a newsletter.
Yeah,
Yeah, something to that nature, but that's something we can discuss in the future.
Okay.
Agenda item.
all right.
Any other questions for me? Nope, all right. Gonna move right along to Andy Fecko with State Water Resource Control Board regulatory update.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board for having me today. And often get to active staff anymore, and so making the presentation is a lot of fun for me. So I'm the general manager at Placer County Water Agency. I am a little bit about me. I've been raised my own family in Forest Hill. I've lived here for 26 years, give or take. And so appreciate all that Forest Hill PUD does for the community. Appreciate having me here today. For those that don't know what PCWA does, we are sort of three things in one. We are a water wholesaler and retailer to most of Western Placer County, from roughly Alta all the way to the county line, Sacramento and Center counties. We serve about 45,000 retail treated water customers, another 4,500 or so agricultural customers through our raw water ditch system left over from the gold rush. We also wholesale water to the city of Lincoln, treated water to the city of Lincoln, so we serve basically the entire city of Lincoln. We wholesale water to San Juan Water and Roseville Water as well from our Middle Fork project, which we'll talk about in a minute. Then we have that operation based in Auburn. Our operation here in Forest Hill is our power system operation, where we operate our hydroelectric system on the project. About 40 employees up here, and we've been headquartered here, not at our current location, but at a previous location by the ball fields since the inception of the project in 1963. And then our third sort of important function, and probably why I'm here today, is we are a countywide water agency. So our act directs us to look after the health and well-being of all the water systems in the county. Assist them when we can. We have our financial assistance program, which the community is taking advantage of up here quite a bit through sort of our loans and grants program. But we also do a lot of advocacy at the state and federal level to make sure that things that come at us from things like Dane was talking about, that we've got the interests of our small districts in mind. There's over 100 water systems in the county. Some of them are tiny. I can give you one on the Highway 80 corridor. There's a gas station that has its own well, and that's a county permitted water system. And so they have to follow all the state laws that you have to follow because they serve the public at their gas station, but they have one well. Well, they don't exactly get out and advocate on their own behalf. And so we help folks like that all throughout the county. So that's our countywide effort. And so that leads me to why I'm here today. So the Bay Delta, which we are all connected to, I brought a map for you today, right? So this community owns and operates Sugar Pine Reservoir, which you purchased from the Bureau of Reclamation. It's a little tiny dot right there. Shirttail Canyon Creek runs into the North Fork American River, which runs down and joins the Middle Fork at the confluence under the bridge, which then runs down to the North Fork to Folsom Lake. Folsom Lake makes releases every day down the Lower American River. Confluence with the Sacramento River here, right in Sacramento. Those two rivers, which drain all of Northern California, flow down into the Sacramento San Joaquin Delta. The Delta is the major intersection of all of California water. The Sacramento and the San Joaquin rivers come together. It's the largest estuary on the West Coast. Water from those two systems comes together right around Chips Island, where the Highway 4 bridge goes over, if you've been down the Delta. And then it drains out into the Sassoon Marsh, and then eventually the San Francisco Bay and the Pacific Ocean. So a lot of steps along the way from our back door here down through the system, but we're all connected in Northern California here to the Bay Delta. The Bay Delta is a troubled ecosystem for a variety of reasons. There are two major export projects for this that state government owns and the federal government owns, roughly down here by Tracy, here at Clifton Court. If you've ever driven down Interstate 5 south of the Delta, you'll see two major canals that head south. The federal water project is really there to supply agriculture in the San Joaquin Valley, stops somewhere north of Bakersfield, but supplies a lot of farmland along its way down. The state water project, which parallels the federal water project, takes water all the way to the Tehachapi Mountains, gets pumped up and over those mountains and all the way to San Diego, 444-mile long canal. So those two entities divert water from the South Delta, which significantly reduces the amount of water going out to the bay. But of course, we all sort of reduce the amount of water going out to the bay because we're using water in Northern California. We're storing it, using it for human consumption, we're growing food. We're doing all kinds of stuff with water in Northern California, which reduces inflow to the delta of the Sacramento River. So for the last 25 years now, we've been living with one regulatory paradigm. It's called Decision 1641 of the State Water Resources Control Board. And it defined sort of roles and responsibilities for maintaining the delta. And it really put almost all of that responsibility on these two projects, state and federal project. They derive their water from Folsom Lake, from the federal government, Shasta Lake, federal government, and Oroville, state government. So they own the three major reservoirs in Northern California, and it was decided at the time that since they were the predominant water storage entities, as well as the predominant water exporters, that they would have the responsibilities for maintaining water quality in the delta. Water quality means two things, very simplistically. Mr. President, wait, stop me anytime if you have questions, or you can do it.
No, you're doing
your
fine.
pleasure.
You keep going.
Yeah.
Quit calling me Mr. President, that's for Donald J. Trump.
That's for my electeds here. So that paradigm, that regulatory paradigm has lasted for about 25 years. In those 25 years, water quality in the Delta has continued to decline, and the species that rely on that water quality have continued to decline. So let's tackle water quality first. This inset, which is really the legal Delta, there is a couple things that happen there for the locals that live there. Probably one of the most fertile farming areas of the entire state. It's no surprise when two major rivers coincide and form a delta. They bring a lot of productive soil down from the mountains that gets deposited there, and so these folks have been farming in the delta since about 1850. It is very productive farmland. Used to be a lot of rice in the early days, then a lot of asparagus. Now it's a lot of tree crops down in here. And so they continue to farm those lands. They are susceptible, those lands are susceptible to a phenomenon that when you farm them and till them, the soil tends to degrade, oxidize, and blow away. And so a lot of these delta islands, particularly here in the West Delta, out there by that Highway 4 bridge, are significantly below sea level now. So think about it, if you farm something for 170 years now, that's a lot of tilling, that's a lot of oxidation, they've lost a lot of soil mass. And so Chips Island right here at the corner here is about 27 feet below mean sea level now. And so you watch the tanker ships go by above your head when you're standing at the bottom of Chips Island, which is quite a sight. So they've kind of farmed themselves into a hole, but nevertheless, they continue to farm, and the East Delta is actually in pretty good shape. And so they rely on this delta being fresh water. And that fresh water, as you reduce the flows in these river systems, like I said, we all contribute to that reduced flow. The salt water pushing in from the bay you have a hard time keeping that salt water out. So you really need fresh water to balance that saltwater intrusion. I saw a question.
Yeah, you got me really confused there on their tilling of land and it's going down.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it's not down far enough that it like holds the water.
Yeah, so they spend billions of dollars to build and maintain levees on these delta islands. So you really dug a pit, okay? And you're holding back water that's above you with levees. And so they continue to farm, but to irrigate those fields on some of those islands and to grow crops, you don't pump water in, you actually just try to pump water out, because otherwise they would flood.
Thank you, because I was wondering, why is this island down below sea level that you care about anymore? How to get there? Because if it's underwater, how can it possibly be tilled?
Right,
Thank you.
right. So it's dry now, but it used to be above mean sea level, but they've just worked it down to where it's below, and they use levees to hold water back. Good question.
I work for Duke down in the levees a lot of the breaks.
Yeah.
That's a lot of soil leaves there, you get a break.
Oh, yeah. It just flushes back.
Stirs everything up into muddy water.
Out it goes.
Yeah, I worked in your,
So if you think about where the freshwater saltwater line is currently, it's somewhere about Highway 4. And it moves, right? The tide comes in and out twice a day. And it's trying to push saltwater in when the tide is high. And so you need to maintain enough water flow in San Joaquin and the Sacramento rivers to keep that water that's too salty to farm with and too salty to drink, importantly. Because on this end of the Delta, Contra Costa Water Agency, cities of Antioch, Benicia, Martinez, they get their drinking water from the Delta. And so if, to the extent that there's more salt water pushing in, those cities are suffering. And that's what's happening, current day. The other problem that's happened is the sea level, right here at the Golden Gate Bridge, where we've got a tide gauge that dates to about 1860. Sea levels come up about 12 inches, give or take, at that location. And so what you're doing, what's happened over the last 100 years is that the amount of head, the amount of water pressure pushing inward has actually increased. Well, because the ocean is 12 inches higher at that location. And so your problem gets worse. As the ocean rises, you need more and more fresh water to try to keep that salt line as far westward as you can get it. That's the human water quality problem in the Delta. The fish water quality problem in the Delta is, this used to be, like I said, an estuary with islands that were above sea level and were flooded in a very sort of shallow manner under natural conditions. They had gently sloping banks, and so you had a sort of rich mosaic of habitat types. You had some deep water in the channels of the rivers, but what you had at the edges was a lot of places that the native species could hide, reproduce, and feed in. And as we have channelized the Delta, leveed the Delta, and generally sort of adapted it for human use and flood control, those channels have narrowed, and we've taken away all of that edge habitat for the fish species. So as a result, we've got one species, several species have gone extinct. We have one species that has probably gone extinct in the last 5 years, the Delta smelt. And the longfin smelt is probably knocking on extinction too, and they're out of this area here. And so what happens now is it's really hard. They rely on fresh water, those species, and so as this saltwater creeps inwards, those species suffer as well. There's more habitat out here for those species, and so the regulatory agencies who are in charge of making sure species don't go extinct want more and more freshwater flow from these systems so that that freshwater line moves further westward and those species have more area to spread out and do the things that those species want to do. And so the Federal Endangered Species Act is pretty inflexible, and so as you near extinction, the federal ESA demands more and more water come from these river systems to try to keep those species happy and healthy. That's the sort of backdrop of what's happening down in the Delta. So I said 25 years ago, we had a regulatory decision. It put most of the responsibility, actually all of it, on the state and federal projects because they own those big reservoirs and they take water out of the system. Those federal projects and the state projects are sort of at the limit of what they can do to stop this problem. What we figured out in the science over the last 25 years is that throwing more water at this problem is not really helping. With the sea level rising, you could burn up all the fresh water in Northern California in the Sacramento River system and San Joaquin River system and still not push that saltwater line out far enough to make a difference for water quality for humans and for the species. And so as those projects have become stretched thin, their allocations have gone down. So I heard Hank say there's no drought problems, sugar pine is filling. We all up here, PCWA customers, FPUD customers, we enjoy near total water supply reliability. I mean, in the worst years, like a 2015, maybe 2022, you might have a shortage or two. It's nothing really drastic, but think about, for instance, the Central Valley Project south of the Delta here that feeds all those farms south of the Delta. Even in the best years, they only get about 2/3 of the water that they contract for. In many years, like even what I consider this year to be pretty average year, they're getting about 55% of their contract water. So they're experiencing shortages every year, and they're at the end of their ability to continue to take on the burden of this system. So the state water board, which you were,
I'm gonna stop you there because you said something that I've been waiting for somebody to say,
all right,
which is throwing more water at this problem is not going to help.
Yeah.
And are you the only one that's saying that, or is that becoming more of the thought du jour?
yes and no, and I'm gonna get there.
Okay,
Yep. So they're at their end of their game. The state water board is feeling they regulate your water rights, they regulate my water rights at our two big reservoirs, French Meadows and Hellhole. They came up with a plan in around about 2014 to do exactly what I just said, throw more water at the system. Okay. The water users, the public water agencies, and the state and federal projects got together shortly thereafter, starting in about 2016, and said there's got to be a better way to do business here because we keep putting water at this. The species, or it's almost comical. The line of water that we've thrown at it on a graph continues to climb, and the species are declining at almost exactly the same rate the other way.
yeah,
And so we said there's got to be a better way. And so with the threat of more regulation and their plan's called unimpaired flow, and I'll talk about what that means in a second. But essentially what it means is they believe this system, they have a scientific basis for peer-reviewed study that says this system needs more water, particularly in the January through June time period, in the spring, when flows would normally have been very high through the system, which is what species are adapted to. And so they wanted everybody on the Sacramento River system and on the San Joaquin River system, which includes roughly McCollum, the Stanislaus, the Merced, the Main-Stan, San Joaquin, and the Tuolumne, all to contribute much more water. What that would have meant for Forest Hill PUD and for PCWA is that during those months when inflow into our reservoirs is what fills us and regenerates our reservoirs for the following summer, we would have had to have let a little more than half of the water that flowed into our reservoir on a daily basis out. Okay, so it's like cutting your inflow in half. And we would have had to let that go, in your case, down Shirt Tail or down through the system I described, for us, down the Norfolk American, would have had devastating water supply impacts to our customers. Not even for the future, but our existing customers, right? And it was like that up and down the state. Everybody that owns reservoirs or was on this system would have had to have contributed half their water supply to this new regulatory paradigm that the State Water Board had thought of. So we got together starting in 2016. This how long I was not in my current job. I've been general manager since 2020. Prior to that, I did legislative and regulatory stuff for the agency in Sacramento and in DC. I was in on the sort of very early beginnings of how do we do something different. The something different that we came up with as a group, and this is like sort of managers and scientists from Northern and Central California, right, who rely on the Sacramento and San Joaquin systems, was to think about the Delta in a different way, rather than think about the static, deep channels that don't support species well and are impacted systems like the Lower American. How do we, rather than try to just shove more water down them to improve habitat, how do we actually improve the physical habitat on the ground for those species so that it will take less water to accomplish the same thing that the State Water Board wanted to accomplish? That's the paradigm we were working from. So we, over the ensuing years, 2016, 2017, 2018, we worked to put together a package of projects, on the ground habitat restoration projects in the Sacramento Valley, which primarily relies on, again, right, this is a very engineered system now. The Feather and the Sacramento rivers are engineered for water supply, but they're also engineered for flood control. And so, right, when we all showed up in the Sacramento Valley and started developing agriculture, this was a marsh all the way up to about Anderson. And it was a seasonally inundated marsh that you couldn't really farm. And so what we did was put those rivers into narrow channels using levees so that when flood flows hit, they would exit the system as quickly as possible at high velocity. And that allowed us to farm. The downside was, that's not how the species of Sacramento Valley adapted. What they want is a marsh. And so part of this program that we developed was to reconfigure some of these levees and bypass areas like the Yolo bypass, which you drive to if you go over to Davis, Sutter bypass, et cetera, to inundate more frequently and mimic that natural habitat. And that, the water cost of that is very small because you're using flood flows during the winter time to inundate that habitat. And that's not when we're farming, right, in the Sacramento Valley. And we thought that was a good idea, and we're continuing to carry that forward. For places like the Lower American River, which is also very channelized, but we don't have the ability to go outside those levees because there's 2 million people that live in the Sacramento area. You can't set those levees back. We have homes and businesses right up against the levees. So for the Lower American, we have to work within those levees. But there are a lot of habitat opportunities, physical habitat opportunities down there. And so we have a plan for habitat enhancement in the Lower American River as well, as does the Yuba, the Bear, the Feather, and the Main Stem Sacramento. All have habitat programs that we've developed through this thinking that we did in 16 through 18. That package also included some additional water. And so to activate those habitats and to recognize that this place is getting saltier, we agreed to come up with, all water users in the state agreed to come up with about 750,000 acre feet of water, 750,000 acre feet of water from all of us. To activate those habitats that we're building and also to help with this salinity problem in the Delta. And the way that that actually works is that in Northern California, we contend that we're the senior water right holders, we're the area of origin, our responsibility is much less. So if you'd like us to help you with this problem in the Delta, you should compensate us. And so we came up with a strategy where the export community that's pulling water southward and doesn't really have the ability to contribute very much water, but they can contribute money into a pool to buy water from Northern California to help with this problem. So that's done in different ways in different regions. In the Sacramento Valley, it involves some fallowing of land, which really just means you don't farm it in certain years. And that water that you would have used to farm stays in the river. For folks that own reservoirs like us, it involves paying us to make some releases from our reservoirs, small releases actually, to help the system in the Lower American and down through the Delta. So we did that work in 2016 to 2018. We presented a package through the governor's office at the time, Jerry Brown, to the State Water Board. They said they would take it under consideration, and we've been in that take it under consideration mode since 2018. Seems like a long time. We are now at a place where they need to decide what to do, the State Water. They need to decide to either take us up on our offer, voluntary sort of offer to make this work, or they need to decide to go down their regulatory pathway of this unimpaired flow paradigm where they just modify our water rights and say, you have to make these releases. Our contention, PCWA, and it's contention of the folks that are involved in the American River, there's roughly 22 water agencies in the Lower American down here that are participating, and then there's 4 of us in the upper watershed. Forest Hill, PCWA, Georgetown, and EID, who own reservoirs, who are also potentially part of this program. And when you put us all together, we make water available in critically dry, below normal and above normal years. And we're compensated for that water, if we all sign up for this, to make water available for the Delta properly. The State Water Board is right at the end. In July, they'll release a dual pathway document. And the governor is very interested in solving this problem. This has eluded many prior governors. And he'd like to put the feather in the cap on this one and solve this problem. And so he is motivating his people to move very quickly to get us over the finish line. And he is a big supporter of what we're trying to do on the voluntary side versus the the regulatory side, even though they're his regulators, he appointed them. He'd like to steer us in this, he'd like to steer this in this direction. So I'm here today to describe the problem. I'm here to tell you there's an opportunity to participate. I've been working with Hank, probably since 2018 on this, when we first came up with this. And just been talking about it with all of our water agencies. It's not something that I can ask you to participate. I think the risk reduction for FPUD is if you're on that regulatory pathway, you've probably got years of legal battle ahead of you, which in my opinion, regulators have a very strong hand, and people that fight this program are probably gonna lose. The folks down here in San Joaquin have been subject to to the unimpaired program since 2018. They've been in court, they've lost every time they've been there. And when they do get a partial win, the legislature turns around and gives the authority to the board to regulate them the next year. And so it's a losing battle, right? And so, my suggestion is that all these 26 water agencies in the American River watershed participate in the program, that we sort of go along with very minor contributions. For us, it is for the upstream folks, those 4 water agencies that are up here. It's about 10,000 acre feet in a couple different year types. We've kind of come together to share the risk on this. We recognize that some years, just full disclosure, right? Sugar Pine, can't remember total capacity, somebody help me.
7,000.
7. All right, you got 7,000 over here. I got, something like 340,000 in my 2 reservoirs over here, and so I've got a lot more storage. Can't remember how big Georgetown's is. Hank knows.
20.
20. And then EID's probably got about 50 over here in storage. And so we got different levels, and sometimes it's wetter up here and drier down here. And so we've come up with a program to be able to share the risk amongst ourselves for that 10,000 acre feet. And so if Forest Hill can do 1,000 1 year, and we can do 4, and EID can do 3, and Georgetown can pick up the rest, we would get paid for that water at about $290 an acre foot, which I think is a pretty good deal in those year types.
Quick question,
Yeah.
is that inflation adjustable?
It's not, but it's only an 8-year program.
Okay.
So I feel like it's not for, if it
Well,
was a forever
the state
program,
is.
I would like it to be inflation adjusted, but it's not forever.
You know how the state is.
Yeah,
So it's
Yeah.
just gonna work out.
so I should say that, thank you, President, that this is an 8-year trial period where this voluntary agreement would come into place, this funding scheme would happen, we would make these releases. But at the end of that 8-year, we're gonna get judged on our success. Did we build the habitat? Did we provide the money? Did we provide the flow? If we did those things, there's an option to re-up the program for an additional 7 years for a 15-year total. My contention is that if we're anywhere close to successful and we're doing all those habitat things throughout the state, I think it's gonna be a really hard program to unwind. This is all told, we're forming a JPA at the state level among public water agencies to collect money and then distribute money out to us. The flux on that program is $300 million a year, in and out. So it's a huge program. I think it's really difficult to unwind a program like that once you get it started. So my hope is we use an 8-year trial period, build a monster that works, and then it's really hard to disassemble that monster. That is how we're approaching this.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you talking about building the radial gates? Is that what you're?
No.
He's not talking
No.
about that?
No,
Just
no.
giving water, right? Just
Yeah.
giving more water. That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
good.
using your
Okay.
existing resource,
I see.
just like, we've all done water transfers in the past. I've been big in the water transfer business. You can think of it in the same way. You're getting compensated for making a release.
So why wouldn't we wanna do that? I mean,
I don't know.
to give about, I mean, it seems like it's necessary.
Yeah, I think it's a good program. I think it's better than getting forced to do it and getting paid 0.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems like a better option.
That's the bad thing is it sounds good, but it's almost inevitable.
Yeah,
Is what-
Yeah.
and whether it sounds good or not, they're kind of forcing our hand into it.
yeah.
Very small carrot for a very big stick behind it.
Yeah.
Was my kind.
Yeah.
And the 290 is not, he's happy with that, but that's not very good compared to what we've been before.
Critically, we're not upstream reservoir operators are not on the hook for critical years. And really, we're not even on the hook for dry years. So we're talking about below normal and above normal years where there is no transfer market.
Okay.
So, I've sold water in below normal years and I got, cause I had to, I got $75 an acre foot. So 290 to me in those year types is a good number. That's better than you're gonna get on the market because during those year types, there's very little capacity to transfer water through the delta to folks in the south. So I feel like it's a fair deal. There are a lot of details. Hank and I have been working on details. Our upstream reservoir operators get together all the time. We work through legal details, all these things that frankly the devil is in the details here about how you compensate it, how you carry that deficit in future years. If you have to carry that deficit in future years, right? Does it last more than 1 year? When do you get to refill? All of those things are details, and we all have to be satisfied with those details. At some point, this board and my board and all the boards are gonna have to vote to be part of the program or not. And so this is not even a sales pitch, it's just me here telling you what's happening. You'll all have to decide for yourselves, with your council and with your general manager, if you think this is the right way to go, or if you wanna go take your chances on the other side of it. And everyone's choice is what it is.
Okay, can you explain it to me again? Then
Yeah.
You had said that, so what we're talking about is getting more water down below, right?
Yes,
Okay, but didn't you say that given more, I mean, not us personally, but more water has gone down there, but it isn't working. I thought that's what you said.
I did. I will say this, that,
How is it?
because we're building habitat and we're building habitat at the edges of existing river systems, it's going to take more water to activate that habitat, right? Because if you think about the edges of the river, you've got to inundate that with water. And so first, we're gonna build habitat. We're actually making really good progress on that in the Lower American River, the Sacramento Area Water Forum, which I help
Oh, you're
fund.
building environment for the habitat.
Yeah, we're building physical habitat in the Lower American River.
Oh,
Other folks are building habitat in the Delta.
oh, okay.
And then, when that's done, you activate it with water.
Oh, okay, okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is now, yeah.
So, that was a lot of ground really quickly. So I'm happy to continue to take questions. Like I said, this is me telling you about this. I'm gonna do this with Georgetown at some point, as well. And then a lot of our water down here, you might ask, okay, so our contribution 10,000 up here. The contributions from the folks down here in the Sacramento region is based around not using as much surface water in those years and shifting to groundwater in those years. And so more water stays in the system in that paradigm, and then you shift to groundwater in those years, and therefore the water becomes available for the Lower American River. They're also getting compensated for that shift. That is not inexpensive. Many agencies in the Sacramento region are wholly reliant on surface water, and this becomes a plumbing project. It becomes a connect folks who have access to groundwater to folks who only have access to surface water and vice versa. And what that does is allows us to use surface water in the wettest years and feed those groundwater folks so that the groundwater can recover. And then that's your savings account. You're building your savings account. And then in those years when the Delta needs water, these folks down here shift to groundwater and more water stays in the system. So nobody gets off free here, and we're about 25% of the water that's being provided in the American River Basin. And these folks are about 3/4 of the water. Obviously, they're much bigger systems with much more population and access to greater resources, so. Sure.
Okay, well, I would say that that's about the best explanation for a voluntary system with a great big stick.
Yeah,
But could you talk details a little bit on, okay, so somehow we, along with you and the other agencies up here, are going to have to release water when and how?
yeah.
Is this
So it'll be, the way we currently modeled it, we would all release water, so here's how it's gonna work in practice. Folsom Dam, 1,000,000 acre foot at the right transition between the foothills and the valley. the Bureau of Reclamation and us having a cooperation agreement around this thing. They're gonna make a release from Folsom at the right time for the Lower American River to activate that habitat, okay? And it may come as a pulse flow, one big chunk, or it may get metered out over several weeks, but they're gonna release 30 to 40,000 acre feet of water. And then we all are gonna pay them back. Okay, what that does is allows us, it increases our flexibility to make a release when we want to make it. And so this is part of those details, but for us, I don't wanna make a release through my hydropower system in the spring because energy is almost valueless in the spring. And so me spinning a turbine in the spring does me no good. So I'm gonna pay the Bureau back over the summer, right? I'm gonna run my hydropower turbines 1 or 2 or 3% more on any given day, and that's gonna deposit some more water in Folsom. They're gonna keep a ledger essentially. If they release 40,000, we're gonna pay them back 10 amongst our 4 upstream folks. And these folks are gonna go to groundwater, which is gonna accrue water kind of slowly, right? Based on a daily basis, they're shifting to groundwater. More water is gonna accrue in Folsom over the summer. At the end of that year, whatever year you're in, the Bureau of Reclamation should be whole because Folsom should have been refilled by our contributions. And they already pre-released the water. That's good flexibility. That's me.
Sounds like a shell game, but okay.
It's much better than us. My view, it's much better than us providing water at precisely the right times because you have limited ability to release, right? I don't wanna run my hydropower turbines. EID has their own situation. Georgetown has their own situation. If we all tried to have to coordinate those releases and get them through Folsom and down the Lower American, it would be difficult. Whereas if Reclamation can just do it for us and then we pay them back with water, that's, I think, they're much better.
So who's building the habitats, the government?
No, importantly, thank you for that. The Sacramento Area Water Forum was created in the year 2000. We are members of the Water Forum. It is a conglomeration of water agencies and the environmental community as well as local government, counties and cities. It is the sole purpose of the Water Forum is to improve this section of the American River, okay? We have funded that over the years.
Who's we,
That conglomeration of folks has funded that.
oh,
And so for instance, PCWA, at the time when the Water Forum was formed, Fort Sill, Georgetown were just small and it wasn't enough water to worry about. The rest of us, we pay into the Water Forum based on how much water we use every year.
oh,
And so we pay a surcharge. For us, it's probably $1 an acre foot delivered to my customers. So I pay the Water Forum several on the order of $200,000 a year. The City of Sacramento, all those folks that are using water pay into the system. We generate about $1.2 million a year. We take that $1.2 million a year and we build habitat with it. And we leverage those dollars to get outside funding from the state and federal governments, okay? And we put that money together and generally we leverage it about 3 to 1. And so we have a good pot of money. Habitat projects are expensive. This is in-river work with big equipment,
yeah,
excavators,
yeah, imagine,
right? And you're
Yeah.
trying to form a channel.
yeah,
And then about once every 10 years, it all gets washed out by a flood and you have to start over again.
oh,
So that's how it's worked today. We're gonna use that same vehicle, Sacramento Water Forum, to do this expanded habitat work, more than we've already been doing. But the beauty of this is now, instead of just us locals paying into that fund, all these folks that need us to do this work
it should,
are paying in.
yeah,
And they're paying in instead of $2 or $1, which this program, by the way, has a cost, I forgot to mention that. These folks down here are paying $10 an acre foot surcharge on their water. So there's a net flow of money northward to get all this work done. And we're gonna leverage those dollars in addition to the contributions we already make. The cost of this program to participate, so this is the downside, is $2 an acre foot surcharge on water delivered to your customers, not stored, not in the reservoir, but what you actually deliver to your customers, okay? For me, I deliver 70,000 acre feet a year or so to customers, ag and urban combined. So I'm gonna write a $340,000 a year check. Of which $1.75 of that $2 goes right to the water forum for this work. And 25 cents goes to that bigger habitat fund that I talked about. So for you all, I can't remember how much you actually deliver, you,
1,100.
1,100, it's times two. $2,200 a year tab to participate in the program. But you're getting $2.90 an acre foot when you do the water transfer. So I think it's pretty simple math in my mind, to get there. So, yeah, that's how the habitat gets built.
How long does it take, do you think, to build it? And what's the anticipation?
So it's an 8-year program and we have to be done with our habitat commitment by the end of that 8 years. The acreage is roughly, if my math is right, it's about 75 acres of habitat. Which sounds not that big, right? But you have exactly a 1 month window every October when flows in the Lower American are low enough that you can get equipment in to do the work.
Oh,
So and remember, it washes out,
yeah.
so you gotta backfill, and so really, if we can do about 15 acres a year, that is an extraordinary pace, and it's about a doubling of our current effort.
Yeah,
And so the way we do this is we are contractors, for one thing. We also use, crews from the city of Sacramento and the county of Sacramento. It is like an all-in effort, like there's a starting gun. Around October 1st every year, we go
yeah,
and just do as much work as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Sometimes the rain comes
Yeah.
early, we get washed out.
yeah.
Other times we get all the work done that we thought we were
Yeah,
gonna
it's
get done, but it's an
unpredictable.
earth moving exercise.
Unpredictable.
It's unpredictable, but it's an earth moving exercise.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So with that said, when should we see this in front of the board?
Your guess, so I've worked on this for 8 years, so I'm not gonna guarantee any timelines, but here's what I think. I think it's sometime after the first of the year. Cause the plan's not gonna be gelled. I want the state board to vote and say, we've accepted this. Because that's when all the details are gonna be finalized, and you all know, and my board's gonna know what we're voting on. Right? Because you don't wanna vote on a program that you don't know what's in it. So my view is, the current governor told me himself that the schedule is done in January. Voting in January, which means sometime in this Q1, Q2 timeframe, we're gonna have to sign up for this program, or go the regulatory path. That's gonna be the choice.
Well, and that's, so when do we wanna sign up for this program? That's what I'm doing.
Well, I think you just answered it, but I guess let January, you have to wait for the details.
Yeah, I guess
Early 2026.
early 2026.
Or 27 or 28, it's fall.
Right.
Yeah,
They've been here 8 years at it already.
I'm grayer now than I was. I have less hair than that.
I just got a couple bullet points.
Yeah.
I came back from the Middle East in a water project, by the way, in 77. And the salt water was at the Rio Bridge at that time. Because I was talking to the guy who was in Temple, they had a special bottle.
Way up here.
I worked with Don Line.
Goes back here.
Another point.
Yeah.
That nobody, because I've been around dams because of my father all my life. One thing that people don't get, erosion. Hellhole, I worked on the Ralston Bridge Powerhouse, 65. And they were building, Hellhole. I fished that up to date. I know, I can get fish there anyway. So, when I, was fishing there, got a fish finder. Actually, right along the dam was 360 feet deep. Last time I checked it, you lost 70 feet of water.
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Hellhole has almost no
300
sedimentation.
feet.
Almost no sedimentation in Hellhole. Sorry.
Well, I was hungry.
Yeah, we have bathymetry of some, from the day it was built, and we last did bathymetry, during our FERC licensing 7 years ago. And, at the dam, we have lost 0. The upstream end, we've lost about.
Well, you do have intake down there.
Yeah, it's just not,
But I know if you look at the whole thing, that whole thing is flat. And if you go down and take a sample and flow it up, you just pull it. Mark, iron needle is chip.
the organics do move through there, but we have not lost anything at the base.
Well, you might not right at the dam, but I mean, I'm talking out
Yeah,
straight from that, with a gold ramp.
So, yeah, is that
That's it, that's what I
all
got
of
for you,
our
Chase.
info that we got?
If you can digest all that. it's
No,
a lot.
I can't, but I'll try.
Yeah. Like I said, Hank and I work together all the time on this and obviously I keep him in the loop and, we're in a special situation, right? We're all upstream of Folsom, those four agencies. We all got roughly analogous situations. We're serving the local population. We think we have senior water rights to anything the Bureau has. We think we have senior water rights to all these folks down here. We're trying to protect those senior rights for the benefit of the communities, and that's the mission. And I'm just, I think this is a pretty good program if we can make it work.
One more point. What do you think about the Auburn Dam not being built?
So, a little off topic, but yeah, so the American River,
Huge project, but
it is, Folsom is dramatically undersized for the size of the watershed. It's 980,000 acre feet. This watershed produces 2.6 million acre feet a year, long-term average annual. 2.6 million goes by Sacramento every year. So 980 is way too small. Auburn would have been, really good for flood control, for Sacramento. The problem with it always was for us as PCW, I'm only gonna speak as PCWA, was that there was no water supply benefit for us, really, in that dam. There wasn't any flood control benefit for us. And so, asking locals to pay for that was really hard. It always was hard. And so when the project changed from a thin arch concrete dam to a gravity concrete dam, roughly tripled the size of the project. It quickly got out of the economic realm of possible, really quickly. And then, of course, in 1982, President Reagan signed a law that there had to be a 50% local cost share match to any federal dollars, and that was the end of that project. Because at that point, it was probably a $20 billion project, and there was no way us folks were gonna come up with 10.
I know,
Yeah, so, Robert,
So,
that's why the houses go from the.
Well, so let's not get too sidetracked on Auburn Dam. If that's Diane, do you got anything?
no, I just wanted to ask, there are four water agencies that we're one of them, right?
Yep.
Okay, now, do you think there's a good possibility all four would agree to do this? And if they don't, what happens if one says no?
yeah, so here's how I feel about this. I actually think it's broader than that. I think all 26 of us have to say yes. Because the thing we're offering is a package,
Mhm.
and if people start to fall off that package, it becomes difficult and the impacts become more concentrated, right? I think it is imperative that all four of us come to terms that we all agree with in those details. And I think if we all don't, I think we sink or swim together on this. I don't really want to do this. I think I'm being forced to do this, but I think we should do it.
Yeah,
But if we can't work out the details, then I don't think any of us should. I think really is all or nothing on upstream.
you did a good job explaining it though, and being very convincing. You convinced me.
Mr. President, that is all I have.
All right, well, thank you very much, Andy, for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah.
I appreciate it very much.
Yep.
All right, and moving right along into our, remarks or reports by directors. Mark, do you have anything to report on, 3075?
Wait, that's a total different.
Well, just, I mean, just, it's because directors and stuff.
I don't have anything that's good being a director. You have other stuff.
I was just curious. I'll just say that, we didn't get our hiring of a board secretary, onto this agenda just because we weren't quite ready, but we're actually starting to stand a little closer to that.
Yeah, well, I did talk to Jennifer,
Mhm.
you know, that
Mhm.
person that you originally started with, and
Perhaps
she did,
on-
yeah,
Yeah.
she did say she can't post it because we're not county. But I would like to suggest, and I've seen this on other websites for other special districts, to put it on our website.
Yeah, oh, 100%.
I think we should do that, that there's a position open, then we can work out, you and I can start working out a contract thing or whatever.
Well, that'll be after we present to the board, get that
Oh,
actually,
okay.
because we actually still have to present to the board and, the
Okay.
board still has to approve what we find, how it's gonna go down, and then that part will come
And
out.
I have one more comment too. It's not a comment. Mark, do you have anything to share with You said you're gonna do some research on the finance manager for other districts. Have you done any research to share?
Okay, that was two different questions. I did have done quite a bit of research. I was planning on kind of addressing that under the next topic on finance manager, because that's kind of what it seems to come under. But
Well,
sure,
that's
I,
Until next,
Well, just because this is, and this one here, Mark, is just to put
I
onto
understand.
the agenda for next week.
But no, I have been working on that. I thought I would distribute that between now and the next board meeting.
okay,
Um,
okay, thank
and,
you.
yeah,
All right, that sounds good.
Ron, anything there?
I don't have your email.
Oh.
I've got a MacBook Pro, didn't work.
It's okay.
So we need to check you to come and fix it up, I guess.
Diane, did you get your email resolved?
3 months ago.
Speaking of that,
Uh,
you must have got it because you did send an email, so. What those goofy emails that you were getting, remember, and all that?
yeah, it was taken care of and then Hank has been notified of it. That, we're talking about that, what do you call it,
Like a phishing email?
yeah, fishing thing, yeah, I only got that one, that's it,
Okay, that was it. Okay.
yeah.
All right. All right, so moving along, future agenda items. Are to help the general manager and the board president craft the next month's agenda. Unless otherwise voted upon, the future agenda will compromise of no more than one new board member action item and no more than one new policy action item. Now is the time to discuss which items the board would, like to see first to help prioritize efficiency. If there is just, the new policy action item is the, or the future board action item is hiring an in-house finance manager, so that'll be on our next agenda. We don't have any, we don't have multiples of those, and then our future new policy action item,
hang on, what do you mean when that item you say is going to our agenda? That's gonna move from there up to board member action items?
yes, and that, because that'll be whether we want to go forward with either looking into hiring a new in-house finance manager or not.
Okay, so
Whether to look into hiring an in-house
I
finance.
thought that was on here for us to decide. Apparently it's just up to me to
Well,
decide.
No, so how this works, how this agenda works is, so before we schedule the agenda like this, we used to be able to just type in every director got to bring up an agenda item, right? Well, so now she put herself in the queue with hiring an in-house finance manager. We're not going to vote on hiring an in-house finance manager next meeting. What we're going to do is, it would be like a policy action item where we're gonna go,
I understand
but it's in the queue, so that would be already there.
Well, I thought we were gonna vote on it, that's what I wanted to do.
And we'll vote on and see, this is where we need to bring up this policy and get this, so we have this in writing here. So we will vote on whether we want to or not want to hire an in-house finance, and then, so now
Oh,
or
okay, that's what I meant.
forming an ad hoc committee to look into hiring a finance manager.
No, I've already done the research, I mean, I've been.
Well, so
working on it for
saying,
months.
Diane, and this is where you and I have had plenty of discussions about this. You can do all the research you want, but everybody else on that board has to get an opportunity, once we've decided on it, to also do the research themselves and form an ad hoc committee to come up with it.
I asked in March to do that.
Well,
You were-
no, I understand, but this is the way we're,
But it doesn't make any sense to me, you're pushing it and pushing it.
now we're not pushing it, cause now we've got it on, so we're organized, so we're not just getting things really done. Trust me, this is going to be organized, this is going to work out the way it should.
But you're gonna, in July, and I present my stuff, and then you're gonna say.
So when you present,
Well, now.
so when you present your stuff, when you present your argument for the hiring a finance manager,
Yeah,
you'll present all your stuff to the board in the agenda. Then we'll go, okay. Now, do we wanna go forward with doing this, or do we not wanna go forward with, based off this
we're
information?
gonna vote.
Then we'll vote. Then, if
Okay,
it doesn't clear, it doesn't clear. If it does clear, then we'll form an ad hoc committee to actually look in hiring finance.
oh, okay, got it, okay,
Okay,
Oh.
so that's how that works.
all right, I
And
understand.
as far as, so, and then here, Mark, right here, so future agenda items. Unless otherwise voted upon, the future agenda will compromise of no more than one new board member action item and no more than one new policy action item. So if there was multiple,
Or we have to pick one,
then we have to pick one or pick both.
okay.
Are we getting that? Now,
Okay, but don't we already have one underneath the board action items for the secretary?
but that was already on,
Okay,
that's in the second part of the process. So that's why I always said, nope, let's not do more than one per meeting, because then we're gonna get overwhelmed.
cause I thought 3075, which we have down here was.
3075 is the, yeah, with the fleet,
Is already-
fleet manager, that's our, actually, why is that on there? I missed that, that shouldn't, because that's already. Coming back, and so is the,
Secretary.
secretary,
Yeah.
that's on the, but that's on the, yeah, policy action items.
Yeah, okay, so you can see we're both confused, so
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
can unconfuse us all by
Yeah.
staying consistent, it would be
Well,
helpful.
I'm trying to stay consistent, I'm getting one new item per deal.
So, that's just fine.
Yeah, so because, and I only wanted to do one new one, because I knew the other ones were going to stack up behind. See,
Okay, so let me reiterate what I thought I heard, which is. If there were two items underneath J1.
Mhm.
Hiring in-house finance manager and deciding to vote on our selling water,
yes,
then only one would go forward.
Yeah.
Pick which one,
we would pick which one, or we could pick both, as long as it's voted on by the board.
on which ones we want to do. Okay, all right. So because there's only one, it automatically.
It automatically goes.
Um,
Yes. Okay, we good now?
Yes,
Okay,
I'm writing it down for next time.
yes,
I'm not sure how legal that is, so, I mean, if somebody wanted to present something more.
well, so that's why.
One item.
That's why. Because before I tried doing it this way. And I need to probably write out kind of order of operation on this, how this goes. But everybody was just putting, we were having 15 items on there, on our agenda.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, and we could, at that time, just everybody put in, we could have inundated the whole agenda with 5 policy items. So what I wanna do is to get these things into a queue to where they're going, okay, we're working on this one next, we're working on this one next, we're working on this one next. We have organization to our agenda. And then if there's something important or if we want to see multiples, we can vote on it as a board. So that way the board has a say in what the agenda
Okay.
is. Not just one person has a say in the
So
agenda,
you're
the whole
saying
board has a say.
That we're not necessarily limited, because
I
that
mean,
is.
we're not limited, no, but it's just going to take it and,
Agree,
yeah,
okay,
that's what I just wanna see, that organization. And I
okay,
know it is a little bit confusing because we're changing it up a little bit the past 2 meetings, there's been 3 meetings now.
okay.
But hopefully everybody will get used to this cycle and just know how we're gonna move things forward,
Okay,
okay?
well, so then, are you gonna be putting based on this, are you gonna put the secretary thing on here, or will you be doing that?
Yeah, the secretary will come, because it's already there, it didn't get put on here, and actually this
Oh,
3075 shouldn't even been on here because it's not new.
but the secretary thing should have
The
been on here, we just didn't.
Well, neither one, the fleet nor the secretary should have been on there because they're not new. They're coming, they should have already been back at this meeting, but we pushed them to the next meeting because we weren't ready to do that.
Oh, okay, you and I are at our
Yes.
city.
And so did Mark with his on
Oh,
37.
all right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, because those were not new, those are already in place getting worked on. Okay, maybe we should add a line item of what's getting worked on. So we know. All right, with that said,
So I think you said what you wanted me to say on the 2A on the fleet policy, but I did have something to say.
okay, what's, yeah.
Yeah, because in essence, you're right, it's gonna come back to the next meeting. We did have a ad hoc committee meeting. We've reviewed several policies from other districts. I don't know if you guys get the CSDA open forum discussions, but they had a open forum discussion on fleet management policies.
Oh, nice.
And so there were, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen or so comments there as well. We have all that kind of together to look at. Talk that over in our ad hoc committee meeting. And our intent now is to come up and do a draft. Hopefully we'll have a chance to take it, but I really want to make sure we have a chance to look at that draft, make any changes. And then that draft should be what you see in the board packet for July. Okay.
All right,
So while we're talking about that, now when you are doing the agendas, are you only going to have 1 or 2 select items up there to talk about, or is it back to, we'll be talking about secretary, fleet, finance manager, whatever else is in our queue.
Yes, we will, because those are already there. Those are already getting worked on. So those will, in certain meetings, yes, they will kind of back up. I was hoping we didn't have the two policies before the secretary and the fleet take this long, but they have taken this long, so they're kind of backing up into it, but hopefully we can get a little bit more efficient as we go along. But that's what I got. Any other questions or comments on that stuff? All right. With that, meeting adjourned.
You didn't vote on the.
How the algae.
Hung in there.
Hung in there the whole time. You know, what time?
Not yet.
This darn power.
Oh, you're.
I don't, they just replaced the power cord now.
Quality?
No, I actually.
I'd say 20, yeah, they had to get a new one. They had to get a new one. Or they call